Kevin Carroll fronted things up for the BBC documentary Young British and Angry, which came out in June 2010, just a year after the UPL marches had started the ball rolling. And after we'd had some big turnouts, over 2,500 in Bolton in March, 2,000 in Dudley, a fortnight later another 2,000 in Newcastle in May. At each of those there were estimated 1,500, 1,300 and 1,000 Muslims and UAF counter-demonstrators. The first time there was a picture of my face was at the latest Dudley demo. I had some EDL masks made up, but during the speeches mine must have slipped off and got knocked, and the photographer cleverly had a big long lens, but he or she managed to catch most of my mug, which was printed on the Wolverhampton Express and Star. It wasn't a massive deal, but I was actually quite enjoying the mystery of it all. The police knew who Tommy Robinson was because behind the scenes they were putting my entire life through the ringer already. But as far as the world at large was concerned, at least, I was still the international man of mystery. It was great banter, a buzz I suppose, but the pressure was coming on from all angles. I'll go into all the financial shenanigans which led to my prison sentence after my brother-in-law's mortgage, but whilst the Pakistani gangs around Luton still didn't know who the real Tommy Robinson was. At that point, the police absolutely did. They nicknamed one of my mates, Andrew Warman. His nickname was Mandy. He had his troubles with the law, no doubt. When they raided him, they found 3 guns and £140,000 in cash. As I understand things, SOCA, the Serious and Organised Crime Agency, talked to him about possible deal after they'd seen me going into his place. Mandy's missus came to see me at the Parrot pub in Farley Hill and told me the law wanted to stick the blame for the guns on me. They'd seen me going into the house. They'd seen a big picture of a group of us on the wall. Then they put 2 and 2 together and came up with 37 or something. What they didn't know was that I was going around all the lads in town collecting a few quid from everyone for a local girl with a serious illness. If you go to the school and do stuff in and around Luton for long enough, you will know people like Mandy, and you'll know at least some people with questionable backgrounds and activities, and I did. He got 13 and a half years for that, but he told them to F off in terms of trying to fit me up. They don't do that to each other in Luton. Word was starting to get round, though, about Tommy Robinson. I didn't make the Bolton demo because I got a call from my mum whilst on the bus on the way there. Some massive white guy had knocked on her door and said to tell her son the devil was coming for him. I made him drop me off and bolted back home to make sure Mum was okay. During this period, when things were taking off so rapidly from the upstart EDL, the BNP leader, Nick Griffith, came out and accused us of being a government front. He said that no group could be as big, as fast, as with such a massive public profile without state backing. Griffin had a conspiracy theory that it was all a covert operation meant to give the government an excuse to bring in martial law. What a joke of a bloke. #Hawkeye. I was interviewed in Granada Studios in Manchester and went in wearing a burqa under my coat. Muslim women wear it so that men don't perv after them. I was doing it to stay alive. On another occasion, for an interview at Centre Parks, I wore the EDL hoodie and a veil underneath. I still wanted someone else to grab leadership of the group and run with it, take it to the next level, whatever that might be. I didn't want the aggravation, but more than that, I didn't think I could do it or was the right person to do it. We had created a massive street protest group virtually overnight from those humble, if angry, beginnings in Luton, but I hadn't a clue how to develop that. And then there was me and the baggage I brought. I'd had a few years of madness with the football lads and the late nights. I didn't have a clean past, what with the prison sentence for the fight with the off-duty copper, and I didn't think I could either cope with the limelight or do the EDL and the cause the justice it deserved. Paraic O'Brien, who did the BBC Newsnight profile on us early on, challenged me to reveal myself. got to the point where the anonymity was starting to become a big story than what we were actually trying to achieve. The truth is, we weren't prepared for how quickly things took off. The numbers turned up at protests, kept growing, and our online support shot up to about 15,000 in no time at all. This brought its own troubles because the bigger we got, the more interested our enemies were in shutting us down. We kept getting hacked and attacked from all directions. The Facebook page would be got at, our website taken down. It was non-stop aggravation. The day before my wedding in July 2011 was the day that Norwegian maniac Anders Breivik went on a killing spree. That night, our Facebook page came under fire. At a time when we were over 100,000 supporters, it was pivotal to how we should operate because it got the word out to everyone so simply. If we were going to do a demo anywhere or wanted to announce anything, it was just click, press the button, and hey presto, we went everywhere. As for who was behind this sabotage, I don't know. The usual suspects, left-wingers, Marxists, Islamists, your guess is as good as mine, the government even. I'm sure they could quite easily do it, although on one occasion the hack was tracked back to someone in Lebanon. The day Andrew Breivik went on his shooting spree, straight away our Facebook page went boom, straight down. We had to start all over again, about 3 times in total. The Facebook group got to about 180,000 at one point. When my identity was finally made public, the reaction at home was everything I feared. A nephew of Nigel Khan, one of the town's most notorious characters, put a picture of me on Facebook saying, "Wanted, big reward." This was during the period when their mosque had been attacked and everything was being blamed on the EDL, which was not surprisingly one of the reasons I didn't want to be known. But here's the thing, this character, the relative of Khan, was well known for going out boozing. He had a wife, all head to toe in a burqa, a white girl mind you, and a kid in Luton Islamic Centre Madrash. And he was going out on the leash with all the gangsters. So, by way of getting back at him, I made a YouTube video with a picture of me and a Union Jack, and then him with a Pakistani flag, then lots of poppy seeds and pictures of people injecting heroin. I Google Earthed his house, the gym where he went to, then published the whole lot on the Facebook group as being the man who had set himself up as the face of the EDL's opposition. His arse went completely. He rang my brother-in-law, begged me to take it down. He's my age, and I still see him around the town, and funnily enough, we get along well enough. Funny old world. All the time that the EDL was spreading and taking off around the country, we had big issues bubbling away on the streets of Luton. None of that was going away. I've always been a thorn in the side of some of the troublemakers locally, like Abdul Qadir Bash. I first came across him when the EDL started and all sorts of trouble began kicking off at Luton. There were firebombings of buildings, cars being torched, and the EDL slogans being sprayed on people's front doors, on the Labour Party offices all over. Sure enough, here were Qadir all over the news, condemning these Islamophobic attacks on his community and saying Luton Muslims were living in fear. And I remember thinking, you're talking shit, mate. I'd already had to move out of my house when we started the EDL, and there was a lucky escape when they went to firebomb my house, but did the next door by mistake. My car was torched, but whoever did it sprayed EDL of the wrong house. I went the next morning to apologise to the bloke who'd been caught in the crossfire, and I had a photograph taken of myself by the graffiti, which happened to be the same yellow paint that had been used in other attacks around the town. This struck me as being a bit strange. I was one of about 26 firebombings that happened all around Luton, and the campaign was working too, because people were turning against me. I got a phone call from an older bloke, from an old black lad who was on the football scene, about another car getting torched, and he thought a young EDL lad must be going round causing havoc. Most of the graffiti was EDL slogan being sprayed everywhere, with occasionally a swastika on the side of a mosque. People were turning against us, thinking we were attacking people indiscriminately, except that I knew we had nothing to do with it. Not that anyone was willing to listen. I had a meeting booked with Gavin Shuker, who was the local Labour MP. His offices got vandalised and sprayed with EDL, and he used that as an excuse not to meet me. Then the police called us down for a meeting, and they told us they'd caught who'd been doing it. The senior officer said they had solid evidence on 6 of the cases, and the suspects were Muslims. I thought happy days, but the copper went on and said that when they raided these characters, they found evidence of things a lot worse than anything like graffiti or arson charges, and they'd be going away for a long time. I asked for assurances that they'd make it public, which the officer agreed, but you guess what next? The police statement simply said that the attacks were not committed by the English Defence League, and that was that. A big publicity announcement that these were Muslims attacking their own community to try and paint us in bad light. If the police had nailed us for it, the news would have been all over every newspaper and the television station in the country. But there still is a conspiracy of silence when the criminals are Muslims. I don't believe that Rotherham and Rochdale and the growing list of public scandals have changed much at all, unless it's a case that the police simply can't avoid it and are forced to front it up. I had a meeting with Abdul Qadir Bash. We were interviewed by the local radio station in the middle of Luton about the oncoming EDL demo, and Qadir said we needed to get together. Me and Kevin went to meet him in a hotel in town, and he turned up with 2 people carriers full of big bearded militants. It was a bit of a show of force, I suppose, though they were actually quite polite to us. These lads looked like killers. They may well have been, come to think of it. And me and Kev and a lad called Danny Wilson simply strolled in, just the 3 of us. These bodyguard types lingered about, and when we sat down, the first thing Qadir said was that Sharia would not come here in his lifetime, and probably not in his son's. But he said the generation after that, when the people will it, Sharia will be here in Britain, and we won't be able to prevent it, and nobody can stop it. And I laughed and said to him, thanks for confirming why I started the English Defence League, because we would fight that till the day we died. We got on reasonably well in that meeting, ironically, Qadir and I, but our views and visions for the country were completely opposite. I talked about the problems of our women being scared by the Muslim gangs, and he said he talked to the people reasonably. It's amazing that he admitted that he even could. Kevin and I told him there were too many incidences of Muslims attacking people just trying to get about their lives, and for every action there will be a reaction. This was no way forwards. He needed to pass that message back to his community. Did it make a difference? Not that I could ever tell. While the EDL was causing headaches for towns and cities, the police forces up and down the country, the authorities in Luton at least succeeded eventually in cramping my style. I've admitted that I've been in more than enough rucks and brawls up and down and around England's football clubs. I'd grown out of all that so-called buzz, though, at this point. When the police picked me up with a football banning order, it was one occasion that I hadn't done anything wrong whatsoever. It was a Tuesday night game at Newport, and while there was no trouble, I wasn't involved. I was having a sing-song and a chant, and suddenly, boom, arrested. But it was over an unrelated incident from months before. At the interview, there was no mention of trouble at the football. I was bailed for 8 weeks, at which point it had turned into a Section 4 public order offence. Suddenly I was supposed to be the ringleader of 100 men mass brawl. No arrests, no CCTV. In the age of mobile phones and videos being landed online, not a single example of this supposed mass brawl. Just these 2 coppers saying I was directing it. I told the court I was singing. I was probably even calling the Newsport fans a bunch of Welsh whatever. But I had nothing to do with any trouble. Not that you have a prayer with the magistrates anyway, and I was found guilty. I appealed it, but my bail conditions kept me out of the town on Saturdays and 1 mile away from the ground at all times, which was Albury Park. That was the point of it all. When the appeal eventually came to Crown Court, one of the coppers said he saw me throw a fist punch that I was directing the violence. The judge had to remind him that that wasn't in his original statement and that he had not withdrawn it. It was even reported to the Guardian that this copper was lying on oath, and yet the judge still refused to overturn the decision, and I got a 3-year football banning order. Mission accomplished. As part of all that, I was banned from travelling to England football games, and the rules covering the situations were that 6 days before a match, you have to surrender your passport at a local police station. One time I drove down to do the necessities, and I had my son in the car with me, but when I got to the Luton cop shop, there were lots of Pakistani gangsters outside, geezers from the Gambo gang, and I was with my son. It just wasn't safe to go in. We went home and drove back down to the police station the next day and explained to the lady officer that I tried to attend but couldn't for the fear of what they might have happened. I thought that was being sensibly cautious. No big deal, eh? Think again. 2 months later, they dragged me out of bed and arrested me for breaching the football banning order. I went all the way to the Luton Court magistrates, and when the policewoman was called to the witness, her evidence was that it hadn't happened exactly as I said. The judge was gobsmacked. She simply said, "What?" and dismissed the case. The police must have nothing better to do, honestly. I sometimes think the local cops, when they're bored, sit around dreaming up new ways to piss me off. The night before my wedding, 2012, I booked a really nice restaurant, Billy's in Harpenden, for 30 of us, close family and friends. I got a call that afternoon from the owner saying the police had been in and warned her about the violent extremists and how she was asking for trouble. She said she would have to cancel. I drove straight over there and the woman said to me, You and your friends, you're always here. Half of them are black. I said, yes, I know, love. That's the police for you. Our evening went ahead, but ruining our wedding. That would have been their idea of a good laugh. Meanwhile, all of that was going on with the EDL and at home in Luton, and the outside problems of people wanting to resolve me as an issue, i.e. kill me, was picking up pace. I've mentioned the 6 Osman warnings. I got the sense eventually that these threats played into the police's hands. Firstly, in terms of inconveniencing someone, me, who was a pain in their arse to them, and then it hopefully succeeded in driving the target of the threats, me again, into becoming fearful and going into hiding. I dare say the third outcome of one of the madmen managing to chop my head off wouldn't have been too unpopular with the police either. The first incident came just before the EDL homecoming demo in Luton. I was out having a few beers and got a call to go down to the police station. A copper read out a letter saying that members of the Berry Park community were angered at my recent actions and the appearances on television that had inflamed tensions, and members of that community meant to cause serious harm to the health and safety of me and my family. The officer said the police couldn't protect me around the clock and I couldn't break the law to protect my family, so they advised me to stay out of the public spotlight and to stay at Luton for the foreseeable future. At that, I asked the officer for the letter, and he looked at me. He shit his pants. So he promptly disappeared for half an hour, and when he came back, he gave me the letter. They'd redacted it all, blocked out all references to Berry Park and the Muslim community. I just started to laugh. I said, "There's the problem, mate, right there. You know exactly who wants to hurt me and my family." Later that evening, 3 officers turned up at the house. My wife was pregnant with our second child, and they insisted that because of the threat wasn't just for me, but for the family, that she had to be told about it. They just loved doing that, causing so much upset as possible. I still didn't know if the threat was credible, or if this was the police trying to put the squeeze on me. And what's more, put the squeeze on me through my family. I've had a death threat via social media by the thousands, and the police haven't done a single thing about it, not once, but this time it seemed it suited them. That night I asked the copper if he'd ever sat a Muslim woman down and told her that non-Muslims planned to kill her. He couldn't answer. He wouldn't answer, because of course he hadn't. It didn't happen. The last Osmond warning in my EDL time was 2013, and on that occasion the police quoted a named individual making credible threats, and I said to them, "So you know who it is? What the fuck are you doing about it?" They just looked at you lamely and said they couldn't do anything about it. Seriously? Do you believe that? The one that got most public attention was the Al-Shabaab threat, not long after they carried out the Kenyan shopping mall massacre. This time, counter-terrorism officers turned up, banging on the front door at 3 a.m. I told my wife to wait downstairs. At this time, towards the end of the EDL for me, they were still cranking up the pressure ahead of the mortgage case coming to court, saying they were considering putting my wife on trial too. I wondered if Al-Shabaab threat was just another part of them winding up the pressure and getting me to crack. The police officer said, "We have intercepted a terror video from Somalia. You are pictured and named. Then we have seen the Al-Shabaab tweet saying that you must be killed at all costs." This was at the time the Somali terror suspect with links to them did a runner from East London mosque dressed in a burqa. Mohammed Ahmed Mohammed made fools of the security forces, at which Scotland Yard said he's not considered at this time to represent a direct threat to the public. No, but his lords and masters just told him and all his mates to chop me up. Despite the geezer doing a runner, his lawyers still got legal aid to fight a case arguing that he shouldn't be on a Home Office control order. 6 months after escaping in disguise, he even won the case. All those human rights lawyers stuffing their pockets with taxpayers' cash to defend the terrorists who's so convinced of his innocence that he did a runner in a burqa. Unbelievable. I was due to appear in St Albans Crown Court after the Al-Shabaab threat, and at least they took that seriously. I might have been considered dispensable, while anyone else named in the video got reasonable protection, but they put the court on lockdown with counter-terrorism officers, bomb squads a lot. The press were even told they couldn't report that I was in the building. The Al-Shabaab threat, or Al-Kebab as I prefer to call them, wasn't just directed at me, but also the Quillian Foundation, Executive Usama Hassan, plus Mo Ansar. They got 24-hour protection from Special Branch or Counter-Terrorism or the Thunderbirds or someone else. I got a letter. Maybe I was supposed to fold it into a paper plane, poke it in the eye of the suicide bomber coming to me and my family. Short of something better to do, I got a mate to come round and film me drawing a pirate map with an X marked on the spot on it and pin it to the front door for any terrorist looking for me. Wankers.